and it is a press that highlights the excesses, if any, of the executive or other branches of the government. It brings alternative viewpoints to the political discourse. The press had an important role to play during our freedom struggle, and I found out nearly 1/3 of the founding fathers of the Congress in 1885 were journalists. The press and its practitioners, commonly known as journalists, of course, fulfill a multiplicity of roles in a civil society, apart from being the guardians of freedom, justice, and integrity of institutions. From journalists and from the press, we expect two things. First, when they talk of the content, we need information. But we also need interpretation. Journalism doesn't stop with just providing the bare facts. In fact, there is some doubt about whether facts are bad themselves, or the facts themselves are in the minds of the journalists. And this used to be an important issue with respect to history. Now, when any historian says, I'm writing only facts and not my judgment, it is very often said that he is misleading. Because what the historian writes is also facts as interpreted or as filtered through his mind. Therefore, facts themselves do not come in that pristine form. Therefore, to that extent, there is subjectivity even in the presentation of facts. But what we expect from the press these days is not merely the facts, but also the interpretation, but also the possible consequences of what they are reporting. Now, business journalism has become something which has grown in this country in the recent period. In fact, prior to 1990, the business journalism in this country was very, very limited. The number of newspapers devoted exclusively to business was very, very limited. Maybe there was one. But now you have multiplicity of business newspapers and journals. Now that itself is a reflection of the growing importance of economics and economic activity in the economy. Therefore, the public need to understand what is happening in the system. I need to understand what is evolving in the economy. And therefore, I always feel economic literacy is imperative. People talk of financial literacy, but more important than financial literacy, economic literacy is important, and that can be done only by appropriate business journalists. IT has revolutionized in some way journalism as it is practiced now. Some people wonder whether newspapers will continue to exist in the context of the growing electronic media. The electronic media is in some ways ahead of the print media for the simple reason news is happening all through the day and all through the night, and the electronic media is able to capture the news as they are happening, and therefore in that sense they steal the march over the print media. But the print media has the advantage that it can elaborate, it can expound ideas better. Now the electronic media, because of the speed with which information can be carried, the speed with which information can be presented, has also the problem that you have all nowadays instant interpreters. Even before the news is completed, you have the interpreters coming out and saying what comes in their mind. And it is very often in what comes out of the top of their mind rather than a reasoned argument. But I think the print media has the advantage that it provides you a detailed analysis, elaborate criticism, and you're also able to hear much more in a detailed way the interpretation of the events. I think it is extremely important that journalists and journalism must operate in an environment free from fear. It must act in a manner in which it is consistent with the major responsibility it bears in democracy. As I said, it has the obligation to inform and to educate, but the freedom given to the press and print and the electronic media must be exercised with caution and responsibility. I think this was the issue that was raised. Now, there is such a plethora of information that comes out that everybody is in a position to be able to communicate. I must say that I am not a tweeter. And I feel, after listening to all the people this evening, how old-fashioned I am. I still read the newspapers, not one, but several of them. I listen to the news, but very rarely I look at what is happening through the computers, the things. So I do use the internet, but not very much. All the, what you call the social media. I don't know how the word social media has come and why all these things that we talk about, Facebook and others, are being described as social media. I think the word itself doesn't appear to be very appropriate. But certainly, we all know that these things are happening. But as I said, there is the responsibility on the part of the journalists to be true to the facts.